The OCD and Anxiety Podcast by Robert James Coaching. Hello and welcome to the OCD and Anxiety Podcast, where we explore how to have a more positive relationship with anxiety disorders, taking back control so that you can start living the life you choose and not the one chosen by your fears. Hello and welcome to episode 176, where today we are going to be exploring how to use the cold for acceptance. But before we get into that, if you are struggling with OCD or anxiety, then you can get a free session with me. All you need to do to get that is to head over to my website, which is www.robertjamescoaching.com, and there you can leave me a message to arrange the free session. In today's podcast, as just mentioned, we're going to be exploring how to use a kind of mini ice bath. So this isn't involving getting completely into your whole body into a massive ice bath. This is about exploring using just your hands and feet to experience the cold in order to learn how to bring acceptance to that very uncomfortable experience. And this is something that you can then use to apply to other difficult emotional states that so often come up with OCD. Now, in other news, I'm going to start uploading the podcast to YouTube. It's going to be there. Obviously, it's also going to be on all the podcast apps as well. But I'm going to be also posting weekly videos to YouTube. So if you want to follow there as well, you can. If you type in the OCD and Anxiety Podcast or Robert James Coaching, then you should be able to find me there. So that's it, guys. I really hope that you enjoy this chilly little episode. And if you have any questions about it at all, then do please let me know. Many thanks. I'd like to start with a quote by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk, and it goes like this: "People have a hard time letting go of their suffering. Out of a fear of the unknown, they prefer suffering that is familiar." And I really like this quote because it's so often very true when it comes to OCD. We prefer to worry and ruminate and go over something that is familiar, that we know about, rather than letting go and dealing with the uncertainty and the doubt that anxiety and our obsessions give us. And this is so often what keeps us trapped. We're just not willing to face up to that doubt on some days. And when OCD is really bad, we're just not willing to face up to it at all. And we're just performing compulsions consistently to not experience that anxiety because we just don't want to accept that unfamiliarity that we have with it. We just want that horrible feeling to be gone. And unfortunately, this just makes things worse. And so really what we have to learn to do is accept the unfamiliar, accept the uncertainty and the anxiety that produces. And when we can do that, then we start getting freedom from that suffering. And we start realizing that, it's so much better to turn up in your life and be able to say, I don't know what's going to happen today. I don't know if anxiety is going to show up today, but if it does, I'll deal with it. And when you have that state of mind and you start to build up that kind of state of mind over time, then OCD really starts to take a back seat. And one of the most important things that we do then is to build a kind of mindset of acceptance. And that is easier said than done, obviously. If you've been struggling with OCD for a long time, you've probably been struggling with the concept of acceptance. When we're practicing ERP, for example, then of course what you're actually doing is you're practicing acceptance. When the really uncomfortable feelings and emotions come up about the thing, the obsession that you really don't like, of course, what you're trying to do is allow it to make space for it, to not push it away, which is what we obviously habitually do in that situation. Acceptance, when you're struggling with an obsession that really gets to you, can really seem like an alien concept. It's kind of like, well, why would I want to accept that? It's impossible for me to accept that. Whereas actually, we're not asking you to accept, the horrible thing that might be going through your mind. It's not about the obsession per se. It's about the very uncomfortable feeling underneath, the uncertainty, the anxiety. That is the thing that we're trying to encourage you to accept, because it's the anxiety that is so uncomfortable, so horrible, so painful in a way. And we need to learn how to do that. And to be honest, sometimes with ERP, it is obviously very helpful. It's generally thought of as the gold standard in treating OCD, and it has a lot of research to back it up, which is all fantastic. But I think we need to find ways to help us to use it in the best possible way, because you can do an exposure, but you can just be sat there kind of fighting against it, not really accepting it. And maybe even kind of performing sneaky compulsions to deal with the anxiety that it's giving you. And if that's happening, then perhaps you're not getting the most out of that exposure experience. And so something that I like to do, because I'm interested in the Wim Hof method and I have all this experience in going into the cold, is actually using the cold as a way to practice acceptance. Now, when you think of the Wim Hof method, you may think of, having to jump into an entire ice bath. And actually, that's not always necessary. There's other ways that you can go about it. So what I'm talking about today is actually just doing a mini ice bath, something that you can do at home. So with this activity, what you would do is get a bag of ice and then a washing bowl or a large bowl, something that's big enough to just put your hands in, and then afterwards put your feet in. And what we're going to be doing with this activity is obviously practicing how to put your hands in freezing cold water and accept the discomfort that comes from this. Now, if you have Raynaud's syndrome, you shouldn't be doing this, but most other people can probably do this, without any problems, unless you have any medical issues that you think might get in the way. So just be careful of that. If you do worry about that, or if you are concerned about that, then speak to your doctor first before doing this. But if you're willing to do it, then it can be a very helpful activity. So to get going with this, all you need to do is to get that bowl and fill it up half with water, and then throw in the bag of ice. Now, what you're going to do is just put both of your hands into that freezing cold water. Now, you might have to wait a few moments for the ice to really make the water cold enough. So maybe wait a couple of minutes first. And before you put your hands in, I'd like you to try to get into a mindset of acceptance. Maybe you can close your eyes for a few seconds and just start to prepare yourself mentally. I'd like you to envision yourself, really try to picture yourself putting your hands into that freezing cold water and being able to accept the discomfort that gives you. Try to see yourself remaining calm and confident in that situation. And you can even, imagine yourself breathing in calmly through the nose and out through the mouth, and remaining calm and collected as you do it. And by preparing ourselves beforehand, we're actually getting into that kind of acceptance mindset. So now perhaps you've gone and got yourself a bowl and some ice, or perhaps you're just going to listen to get the instructions on how to do this. So what you would do is just very slowly and gently put your hands then into the cold water. And I'd like you to really focus on how uncomfortable that feels. Actually, rather than turning away from that discomfort, something that we need to learn to do with OCD is to feel what we're feeling and to try to accept that discomfort. So what I'd like you to do is just to move towards whatever you're feeling. Try to feel the discomfort, try to feel any pain that you might have in the hands or in the fingers, and just allow it to be. No need to push it away. And we're just going to try to keep our hands in the cold water for 2 minutes. Absolutely no more than 2 minutes is necessary. So we just put them in, and maybe you can time it beforehand. So you get a clock and you set it up so your hands are just in for 2 minutes. And try to keep your focus on the hands, trying to allow yourself to feel whatever you're feeling. And this is what acceptance is. By remaining in the situation, by not taking our hands out, which would be like a compulsion, and actually just learning how to deal with that discomfort. Just focusing on how uncomfortable that is, but recognizing that we can tolerate it, and that by tolerating it enough, we can learn how to accept it. So just keep your hands in there, and what you'll probably find is, as time goes on, that discomfort begins to go down. As our hands become a bit numb, the pain will subside. And then after 2 minutes, we take our hands out and you can dry them off. So now we're just going to repeat this whole process with the feet. And again, just placing the feet in and allowing yourself to feel whatever you're feeling. And if you like, you can focus in on the breath. Very calmly breathing through the nose and out through the mouth. I'm just practicing allowing that discomfort to be, and not doing anything to get rid of it. And again, we just keep the feet in for 2 minutes, and afterwards we bring them out, and that's it. And then after doing this activity, it's helpful to reflect. What have you learned from it? From actually being pretty brave, because putting your hands and feet into freezing ice cold water is very uncomfortable. So the fact that you faced up to that discomfort is really great. And you allowed yourself to experience something that normally you would push away. And how can you actually bring that then to OCD when you're really struggling with something, when you really want to perform that compulsion? Can you think about this activity and the state of mind that you brought to it? Can you tap into that same acceptance mindset and be able to just not perform that compulsion, or postpone performing it at least for 5-10 minutes to learn to deal with that discomfort a bit better? Really, any time that you have success with not performing a compulsion, even if it's just postponing it for a short amount of time, that is a success. And the more that you're able to do it, the more that it builds up over time. And in my experience, this is how you really learn to get over OCD. It's not just about doing a whole load of exposures in one day and then suddenly, you're better. It's about slowly taking action each day and learning to deal with the discomfort that OCD produces. And over time, you can really start to feel a lot better. So there we go, guys. That's it for today. I really hope that you found it helpful. So important that you do this safely, please. So make sure that you never keep your hands in the ice cold water for longer than 2 minutes. So there we go. I really hope that you found it helpful. If you have any questions, then do please let me know. And many thanks. Just a quick reminder that if you want to get a free session, all you need to do to get that is to head over to my website, www.robertjamescoaching.com, and there you can leave me a message and we can arrange the free session. And now just a quick reminder of my disclaimer. Any information that you view on my website, Instagram page, Facebook group, or anywhere else online, or any information that you listen to on the podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for actual medical or mental health advice from a doctor, psychologist, or any other medical or mental health professional.